I never thought anyone in the future would hear my story, but here you are, with your glowing screens and warm houses, probably sipping something sweet while I'm, well, freezing next to a stubborn fire that refused to stay alive. Hi, I'm Allah. I'm not a time traveler, I'm just your friendly neighborhood cave woman, living about 30,000 years before you were even a twinkle in the mammoth's eye. You have Wi-Fi. I had mammoths. You scroll. I run from saber-toothed cats. You watch Netflix. I stare at fire sparks like they're the most exciting thing in the universe. Honestly, it was pretty great. So, let me tell you my story. From the moment I was born to the day I left this world, no filters, no makeup, just smoke, bones, and a lot of running. I was born on a cold winter night when the moon was small and the wind howled like a hungry wolf. My mother gave birth lying on a pile of furs surrounded by the women from our group. No one asked her how she felt, no epidural, no warm light, just raw strength and the warmth of a single fire that we prayed wouldn't go out. When I came out, I screamed like a little wild thing. And everyone cheered because crying meant I was alive. Not every baby got that far. Many didn't survive their first winter, but I did. I was small, loud, and very determined. My crib, a fur, a couple of sticks to keep me from rolling into the fire, and probably a bug or two crawling nearby. My first toys were rocks, bones, and whatever the older kids didn't mind me chewing on. If you've never played with a mammoth bone, you're missing out. It's surprisingly versatile. We didn't have lullabies the way you do now. My mother would hum softly, a deep sound, like the wind moving through the trees. Sometimes I'd fall asleep to that sound, sometimes to the crackle of fire, sometimes to someone yelling outside because a wolf had wandered too close to camp. Childhood wasn't soft. There were no fluffy blankets or playground swings. By the time I could walk, I was expected to follow the others into the forest. My tiny hands learned to pick berries, dig roots, and, most importantly, stay quiet. Predators heard everything. Silence wasn't just polite, it kept us alive. At 3 years old, I could tell the difference between a berry that fills your belly and a berry that sends you to the afterlife. At 5, I could carry a small basket on my back without crying about it. At 6, I understood that when adults started whispering and pointing to the woods, it usually meant something big, and probably hairy if someone was out there. We didn't have schools. The world was the classroom. If I didn't learn, I didn't survive. My lessons were, don't eat that, run fast, don't pet the animal with sharp teeth, and fire is your best friend, but it also burns. Pretty solid curriculum, honestly. Nights were cold, fire was our center. Everyone gathered around it. The men with their stories about hunting giant beasts. The women with their quiet strength, the children curled up like small animals. I used to stare at the sparks as they floated up into the dark sky and imagine they were little souls running to meet the stars. Winters were hard, food ran out, the wind hurt, people got sick and sometimes didn't wake up, but we didn't talk about it. We just kept moving like the river under the ice. Looking back now, I realize my childhood was short, but it made me strong. I wasn't raised to be careful, I was raised to survive. I became a young woman at around 13 winters. It wasn't really a choice. One day I was a kid climbing on rocks. The next day everyone started looking at me differently, like I suddenly turned into a piece of valuable trade. The first sign of adulthood, I got my own fur coat, a real one. It smelled like smoke, mammoth fat, and survival. And then came whispers about which group I might join, who I might be given to. Romantic, right? Back then we didn't have dating apps. We had the elders will decide. Alliances between groups were important. One woman joining another group could mean safety, more food, or shared hunting grounds. I didn't get to choose. I just followed the path laid in front of me, barefoot with my heart pounding like a drum. When I left my first camp, it felt like losing a part of myself. I walked with strangers into the unknown, but that's what we did. We adapted. Fast. My new home was another set of caves, another fire, another group of faces that stared at me like they were trying to figure out if I was useful. I was determined to be. I learned fast. How to make tools from bone and stone, how to sharpen a stick so it could stab a boar, how to make fire when the wind howled. If you couldn't make fire, you were pretty much useless. No fire meant no warmth, no cooked meat, and no protection from predators. Fire was everything. Women gathered plants and roots. Men hunted. But don't let the stories fool you. Without us, they'd probably starve. While they were out trying to wrestle a mammoth, we were feeding the children, preparing food, tanning hides, patching shelters, and keeping the fire alive. If you ask me, we were the real MVPs of the Ice Age. Nights in my youth were something magical. We'd gather around the fire and share stories. The hunters bragged, of course, about their kills. We rolled our eyes because we knew half of it was made up. The stars above us burned cold and bright. I didn't know what they were, but I liked to imagine they were the eyes of all the women who came before me, watching, whispering, "Keep going." Hygiene, let's say, not great. We bathed in rivers when we could. No soap, no shampoo, just freezing water that made your teeth chatter like two rocks. If you smelled like flowers, something was probably wrong with you. We smelled like smoke, sweat, and survival. It was a perfume that said, "I'm still here." We didn't have calendars, but we marked time with moons and seasons. Each season brought new dangers and new small joys. The first berries, the long summer days, the feeling of cold earth beneath bare feet. Life wasn't easy, but it was real. And somewhere between the hunts, the winters, and the smoky nights, I grew up. I became a mother before I turned 18 winters old. That was normal back then. There was no waiting for the right time. Life didn't wait. My first child was born near a river, on a warm night when the frogs were singing and the stars felt too close. The other women helped me. No doctors, no medicine, just the fire, their hands, and my screams. When the baby cried, I cried too, not from pain, but from relief. Another small soul had made it into this world. Motherhood was a full-time survival mission. There were no strollers, no babysitters, no me time. The baby was always with me, wrapped in furs against my chest, even when I was gathering roots or chasing after some idiot who thought stepping on a thorn bush barefoot was a good idea. We breastfed for years. Food wasn't guaranteed, so breast milk was life itself. Sometimes other women nursed babies that weren't theirs. It wasn't weird. It was how we kept our children alive. But not every child survived. Some got sick. Some didn't wake up. There were no names for illnesses, no words like infection or virus. There was only the silence that followed, the way the fire suddenly felt colder, the way the stars stopped twinkling for a moment. That was the part of life we didn't talk about. We just carried it inside like a stone in the chest. I had more children over the years. Some lived, some didn't, but every one of them left a mark. Every child who survived was a victory against the darkness that surrounded us. By the time I was 30 winters old, I was considered old. I know you'd call that young. But back then, reaching 30 was a badge of honor. My hair was streaked with gray, my hands were calloused, my teeth, well, let's just say I didn't have all of them anymore. But I had something more important: respect. The young girls came to me for advice. I taught them how to make fire in the rain, how to tell which plants would feed you and which would kill you, how to keep going when the world felt too heavy. I was the keeper of knowledge, the living memory of the group. We didn't write things down, we passed them through stories, through hands, through eyes. When people in our group died, we buried them with care. A necklace made of bones, a favorite stone, sometimes a fur. We believed they would need these things in the next life. Or maybe it just made it easier to let go. I knew that one day they would do the same for me. And I like to imagine, maybe thousands of winters from now, someone like you would find my bones. Maybe you'd put them in a museum. Maybe you'd whisper, "Wow, look at this primitive woman." But let me tell you something. I wasn't primitive. I was alive. I was strong. I was the beginning of your story. You have cities and machines and endless food. We had fire, stone, and each other, and somehow we made it work. If I had a diary, here's what it would say. She was born in the cold. She grew among wolves and stars. She learned to run fast and love fiercely. She carried life inside her, buried pain in silence, laughed by the fire, and never stopped fighting. She kept the fire burning. So next time you complain about slow Wi-Fi, remember me, Allah cave woman. I gave birth without anesthesia, survived without Google, and raised kids in a world where everything wanted to eat me. And you know what? It was one hell of a life.